Welcome back to Personal Branding and Motorsports. For those of you that are new to this channel, I'm TJ Fry and I bring you into the world of professional driving, along with some tips and tricks to help you grow your brand, sign sponsors, and build your career behind the wheel. Today I'm here with a good friend, Kevin Anderson, also a professional driver. Kevin and I met through DirtFish instructing and have had a lot of fun together over the years.
Wow, we have, yeah.
Yeah.
So many stories now.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's getting pretty wild. And now, at the very moment, we are in, where are we? Houston, right?
That is correct. That's why we are in shorts and t-shirt. We just came from Chicago, and you probably already mentioned that in one of your previous videos, but that was not shorts and t-shirt. That was like 20, 30 degree weather. So
that was chilly. Same outfit, by the way. That was that we all had to wear. You guys were all wearing the 3-layer fire suit. So Chicago, that was welcomed, I'm sure, but here not so much.
Not so much. Yeah, I'm sweating.
Yeah, it's been a good tour. So basically, what we're gonna do right now is I'll kind of turn everything over to Kevin, and we're just gonna chat about his background and kind of figure out where you came from and what your story is, where you're headed, etc. And so let's just start out with that. Give us a little bit of background about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? And how'd you get into driving?
Oh, man. I'm a raging alcoholic, as indicated by this.
All right.
Cheers to that. No, that's not true. Only when I come to TJ's room, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
There we are. Let's see. Starting go-karts, got into road racing, and that was with my uncle, who is still road racing. He does a series called Pro 3. And it's a Spec E30 series.
Yeah. That's only in the Northwest, right?
For Pro 3, if you call it Pro 3, it's a Northwest thing. It's Spec E30 everywhere else. So I just tell people it's Spec E30 because most people understand that. And then, just between jumping in and out of his ride and fixing, well, I don't know how many cars he has now, but he's got quite a few E30s that he's been trying to find the winning formula to try and be successful. Just in and out with him, and then... do you want me to give the whole DirtFish story, or do you want me to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I actually don't even know how you got involved with DirtFish.
It's a pretty wild story. I think it's actually good for camera. So, sure, I'll give you the DirtFish story. So, here I am in 2010. I just graduated college. I did my finance major. I was a pretty ambitious dude looking to, potentially gain all my series testing, and without boring you about finance, basically you go through multiple rungs before you ever make it into what I wanted to do, which was you could do corporate finance, make it into Boeing, let's say, and yada yada. You start making a lot of money, and what was I going to do with the money? Oh, I was going to go spend it on cars, right? Like the most of us. Probably everyone's on this channel is probably thinking the same sort of thing, right? So after kind of going through that idea enough times, I was like, well, the whole reason is to go play with cars. Why don't I just find a way to go play with cars? And so that's about the time as I was working at Safeway, which was about year 8 or 9 that I was there. I was there for a long time. And I graduated college, so I said 2010, and I worked for Safeway for a little while, did some soul searching, and then on a Groupon of all things, found DirtFish. This is like 2011 beginning. And I decided, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let's go check it out. And that was, maybe a year in that DirtFish had even started. So they were still pretty new to the scene. So kind of right time, right place. I showed up, took the 2-hour class, I think is what I started with, which is, it's such a tease. I mean, you're there, I think you get like 9 minutes of driving, something like that. It's pretty quick, and then you're out of there. So it was fast. And then, but while I was there, met a really good friend of mine, Alex Altberg, who has gone on to do many successful things in road racing specifically. But anyway, he was instructing out there, and I asked him, I was like, hey, how'd you get a job here? And he said, well, I took every class they offered, and it worked out. And it sounded so simple when he put it that way, and I was like, well, shit, maybe I should try that. So I had $10,000 saved up after college, and I basically spent $9,500 of that on every class they offered.
Oh, wow.
And nearly broke myself. And I did that because of Alex's advice. And I was like, okay, well, let's see if this works out. So I go through every class, I get all the way to the end, and rolling interview is what Forrest Duplessis, the last lead instructor that I was there working with. And so he goes, rolling interview, show me what you got. And I'm like, okay, this is it. This is my moment to prove it to him that I want this job. And he'd known up to this point that it was, all kind of moving in that direction. And I think he was all for it. I think he genuinely had in his heart that he wanted to hire me. Anyways, 2 laps. And I'd been crushing it up to this point, right? Like I was doing a stellar job. Like he was stoked. I was stoked. I was just consuming as much information about rally as I could because, mind you, I didn't have experience in stage rally. I didn't have much experience in off-roading for that matter, but I did know car control from, like I said, the karting and the road racing, but also sim driving. A lot of video games, like I'm sure many of us have played in our lifetime. Sim driving specifically, not just the arcade games, right? So, anyways, I came into this and very motivated, very hungry, and I did it on the second lap of that rolling interview. The entire staff of DirtFish is standing on the inside of skid pad, which you know very well, the big skid pad. And there's a corner affectionately known as Kevin's Corner.
I've never heard this story.
I
know
figured I'd
Kevin's
save
Corner.
this.
All right.
Okay, so Kevin's Corner at DirtFish, like many of the instructors have a corner named after them, was 2011. And so I'm coming into, which Kevin's Corner is.
Yeah.
So
right
basically,
after bus stop, right?
Yeah, right. So it's basically from gravel onto pavement, back onto gravel into a very sharp right, like say a 90-degree right, and it's off camber. So at that point, I see every one of the instructor staff on the inside of this corner, and they're all just like cheering me on, and I get stoked. I get really pumped that they're there, and I just go in my head, well, if they're there, I should probably send it, right? Like that's a normal thing to do if everyone's there. So, I'd hit that mark I don't know how many times, but naturally as I got onto the right-hander, as it transitions into gravel, I missed my mark by probably a good 6 inches to a foot of where it's flat. If you're on the flat stuff, you can actually carry quite a bit of speed. If you get off camber, you naturally lose traction and slide, which I did. And, everyone's cheering me on, and I end up sliding farther than I wanted, and I stuffed an STI. This is like this was probably the 05 STIs at the time.
Yeah, the Hawkeyes.
Anyway, I sent it sideways into 2 green trees about that big, and they flexed a little bit, but it's enough to stop a car, and it basically just dented the rear left driver's side door, but passenger side, passenger rear. Anyways, it was enough to where you couldn't open the door anymore. I mean, it was a good solid yep, Kevin did that, and. But the whole action of when it went into the trees was so violent. It was loud and then silent, and then I looked over at Forrest, who's in the passenger seat, and I was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he looks at me and he was so pissed because he was so, I'm sure had the idea that I was going to get the job if I just cleaned up the lap and finished it strong, and sure enough that happens. He ends up just swearing, I don't even remember what he said. He was something like, fuck, just in the moment. And I was just like, uh-oh, that's not good. So we end up driving back up to the top, out. I should also add that they had to pull a tractor, out to actually pull me out of the car. Yeah, that should add that little part there too. So yeah, I'm feeling real good at this point. And again, after $9,500, as I drive with Forrest back up to the top, Ross Bentley happens to be there. He was the CEO at the time. If you've ever heard of this series, Speed Secrets, he's the author of that. Really great guy. Still love him to this day. He's coming down the walkway as we're driving up and stops, and Forrest talks to him kind of out of my earshot for a second, and then I see Ross bend down and look in the cabin, and he's like, well, we'll be in touch. And I just was like, oh, that's not a good feeling. Yeah, that's stab and twist on that one. So yeah, that was kind of the end of that. And then basically I kept in touch with Alex, became really good friends with him. He's a great guy. And over time, I think it was it was probably 8 to 9, almost 10 months later, really. The guy that was on the inside of that corner, Don Wooten, stepped up and took the role of Forrest's job, and became the lead instructor, and remembered the heart I had, the kind of passion I showed early on, and decided, hey, Alex, do you still keep in touch with that guy? One thing led to another. Mind you, during that time, that 10 months time, I decided it would be a good idea to quit my Safeway job making it was like $22 an hour. It was good, especially for a kid out of college.
Yeah.
And and just go sell Toyotas for a while. I thought that would be a good idea. I wanted to learn more about the automotive industry in general, and just kind of see how the dealership side of things worked. That's probably the hardest job I've ever had to do, honestly. Safeway was rough, but selling cars is a whole nother deal. Like that is.
Oh yeah.
That is a really tough job to do consistently, and well at. There's just highs and lows as you go through that job. Sure. Anyways, I get the call from Don at the dealership, and I'm like, yeah. How soon can we make this happen? I'm like, oh, now. I want to get out of here. Yeah, and
wow, that's wild.
Yeah, so that's the story of how I got into DirtFish, and then the rest was history. And while I was getting my feet kind of going into DirtFish, just kind of slowly getting part-time work through them, I quit the sales job and I went straight into valet of all things, and did that part-time to offset it until DirtFish took off, and
sweet.
Here I am.
That's wild. So you've been with DirtFish a long time now.
This is 5 years running, yeah.
5 years, all right.
This is 2013 summer is when I started, so yeah.
That's killer, man. Yeah, I really do love that place. I think this would have been my 3rd year there. I think.
Jeez. Yeah.
I think that sounds right.
Even that timeline doesn't sound right, because I just said 2011 is when that happened. It must have been like early 2012. Because then 10 months later, and then 2013, I don't remember. But yeah, somewhere in that time. It's been a while.
Just keeps flying by. So I think Kevin's advice would probably be just go to a school and crash their cars, and you'll get a job.
Yeah, that's like really bad advice, actually. I will say,
yeah, that's funny. Dude. I never heard. I knew that about Kevin's Corner, but I never knew that was like.
I was kind of saving that story because I knew that would be good for camera. So
that's a good one, man.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. So now you've done quite a bit of instructing. You've done stuff on the road as well, and you basically had a very similar career to me. Like,
by the way, I haven't crashed since that moment, so just want to put that out there.
Don't put that juju out there.
No, I've done some wild stuff, but I've always found a way out of it.
That's good. Yeah. I guess So what I'm curious about is what's your experience getting into this industry, like moving from DirtFish into the travel industry,
into what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
Contractor work. Actually, that's another interesting story. So, okay, so I'm in valet, right? And so this is about 6 months after DirtFish is working out. And so I've completely removed myself from selling cars, and my uncle invites me to a 425 Motorsports. You know those guys?
Yeah.
So they invited me out to come basically just kind of see the grand opening for the Ridge Raceway. Which is over there. And this is...
Still haven't been there.
Yeah, God, this was 2012. So, awesome track. Really cool track. It's a really
That's what it looks
awesome, just freshly paved. It even has a corkscrew from like Laguna Seca-ish kind of thing. And the track is just really, really fun to drive on. Anyways, I go to this sort of BMW club meet / grand opening for this new racetrack, and one of the guys that gets on stage is this guy in the industry that Wes Hill, the Hill Brothers. And I love this guy to death, and I know him only from that meeting, but after learning more about this industry, it turns out that this guy's like a legend. Like, he's done all sorts of stuff out here. And been in it for a long time. Anyways, he's talking on stage, and someone goes, "Yeah, tell these people what you do." And there's probably 40 of us in the audience, and he ends up trying to stumble his way through what it is exactly what he does, which ultimately is what we do now. Because he was like, "Well, I talk in front of people and make the brands look good, and then I end up driving the cars sometimes for clients, whether in the right seat or driving seat." And he says this much more eloquently than I do. And then just basically stumbles his way through 5 different things that we do in this industry, because there really is a lot of variety to what we do out here.
Yeah.
More than just right seating.
Oh, yeah.
And then the more I hear him talking, I'm like, that's a thing? That's a real thing? You can do that? You get paid to do that even? And I'm like, DirtFish is awesome, but I wanted something with variety. Like if you do a driving school for too long, I know this sounds crazy, and whatever job you're in right now, you're probably like, shut up, dude. Like that sounds way more fun. If you do a driving school, the same one for too long, it really wears you down. Like physically, emotionally, because of just the normal politics of wherever you work, but more physically than anything. Like if you drive right seat for a long time, especially like a rally school where you're bouncing around a lot, like it really hurts after a while. It starts beating you up. Yeah. So to have the variety of doing this side of the industry and doing DirtFish, I think is the ultimate combo. Is like part-time at a driving school and the variety to do stuff and meet really awesome people. TJ Fry, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you know him. Yeah. He's a pretty good guy.
Thanks, dude.
So anyway, my story. So this guy, Wes, I start... so, he's talking on the stage, and as soon as he gets off stage, I run straight to him, and I'm like, hand in front of him, like, hi, how are you? What is it you do again? Like, how did you get into that side of the industry? Kind of like you guys are watching this whole, series, trying to figure it out. I just introduced myself, and I think he kind of picked up on that I was hungry and willing to learn, and he ended up being really open and just kind of let me pick his brain. And the best thing he did to really make a move towards this industry was he said, hey, that Seattle International Auto Show is coming up. I think it was like literally a couple days from when he called me. Why don't you just show up to the auto show and just start meeting people that are doing the ride and drive events on the outside of the auto show? And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I showed up with I don't even think I had business cards from DirtFish at the time. I was just like kind of winging it. I probably should have, but it was like I just showed up and I shook hands with everyone on the inside, every manufacturer booth I could think of, and then went outside to all the ride and drives where people were given test drives and stuff like that. Talked to, probably 20 different teams by the end of it, and then there was one guy that was supposed to be there, but he was on his lunch break, and the guy was like, yeah, just wait a little longer, and I was just about to run out because I had to go back to work at valet, and he shows up at the last minute, and sure enough, that was the guy that gave me the job and
really
gave me a chance in this industry. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That was Rom, who's now out of this industry, and that was Urban Racer, and I still love working with those guys. And actually, Jim, who is my roommate, he got in through this industry through the same company. So.
Really? All right.
Yep, through Gabe.
Actually. Okay. Yeah, Gabe Henderson, fellow Montana guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's not that many of us.
Apparently not, yeah. But what's there is good, so it's quality.
It's solid stuff. Well, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, that's wild. You just walked around and like shook hands with people and like finally found. That's actually really good advice. I know, I interviewed Andrew Evans a while back, and he had commented on he's like, I just brand myself. I whore myself out. I wear my own name and my logo on my shirt, and I go to like car meets and just introduce myself to people. And he's like, you never know who could open a door.
But see,
for
like
you.
that kind of stuff, and you've probably heard this from many people. It's creating your own luck is really what it is. Like you go out and put yourself in these situations, and some of them are slightly humiliating. Some of them they lead to nowhere. They're kind of a waste of time. But ultimately, you're presenting yourself in front of these people, and like I said, creating your own luck. You're giving them the opportunity to want to hire you. You're there, as opposed to just shotgun blasting emails out to multiple people. They don't see a face attached to that email, and more likely they don't even read the email because it's just one of many in their directory. So try to make it a face-to-face contact and go to these places where they're going to be. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty wild too because everybody's experience getting into this industry is so different. Yeah. Nobody has the same story.
I would agree. Totally agree.
Which is really, I think that's what makes it so hard for so many people, for so many of you guys watching this, because we don't really even know how we got into it. So you come to an event, that's a question that I think we get more than anything else when we're in an event like this, is somebody saying, oh man, like, how do you get your job?
Sure, yeah.
And I there's like no answer to that question, because your experience is so different from mine, it's so different from Jeff's, it's so different from everybody's. So it's definitely a wild thing, but I do think that you're absolutely right on a lot of points, and in particular, you have to make your own opportunity. They say, what is it? I think the saying is something like luck is opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah, sure.
Like proper preparation or something like that. Point being, like, you have to have an opportunity, but when that opportunity presents itself, you have to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may not know what that means, but, like you said, going around shaking hands with people, putting yourself in front of them, and really, being different, which is what I stress in a lot of my videos and my content is don't be the normal guy. Don't be or driver, woman, whatever. Don't be the normal person, right? Don't be the guy that just sends off an email or, like, getting an introduction with somebody is so valuable. Be the dude that's willing to go to the show and shake everybody's hands and be exhausted, then go to work after a full day walking around the auto show. Like, that is the guy that is dedicated, that wants to do it, and I think people see that. So my story is very similar, but basically I called up Bobby after taking his school and said, hey, man, can I just get some track time for changing tires or whatever?
Okay.
And he begrudgingly said, come on out. So I brought the little drift car out, and
which was what at the time? Was that
my yellow 240, the first car I ever built. And he was, basically I just changed tires. He taught me how to change tires. He taught me how to to do a bunch of things on there. They have their little Focus ZX2s. And so I would change brake pads that had, the rear brake pads that had been, or shoes drums or whatever that are all glazed. Yeah. And so I would just kind of maintain the cars. And at one point, I'd been doing that for, I don't know, a couple months. I'd go out like every 2 or 3 weeks when he was in town and do a course. And so I'd probably done it 6 or 7 times, so he knew I was dedicated to being there. And he'd let me drive a little bit, and every now and then he'd, comment on my driving while I was off doing my thing or whatever. But for the most part, he pretty much I just showed up, worked for the day, and then went home. And then after 6 or 7 times, one of the instructors was like running late. I don't know if it was traffic or what, but he wasn't on time. And so Bobby just turned and looked at me. He was like, TJ, you know how to do this? Jump in the car. Go instruct that guy. And I'm like, just totally like threw me under the bus. But he was right. I kind of like struggled my way through it, but I got my student to do it and figure out, and I'm sure I used way more words than I needed to, but point being, I was there at the right moment. When that guy didn't show up and Bobby needed another instructor, he kind of threw me a bone. And so you really do need to put yourself in that position. So I can see somebody, that's maybe been building a course for 6 months, and all of a sudden, like, one of the drivers is just like gets sick or something, right? Or has to leave early. And it's like, yo, can anybody here drive? Can you handle doing that? And if you're able to say, I can do this, there's your foot into the industry.
Definitely.
Pretty wild stuff.
By the way, try to really be I don't want to knock the people that are subscribing to this, but it's really important that you become, I don't want to say a yes man, because that implies that you're just being a layover, but really someone who's always willing.
A pushover?
Yeah.
We travel a lot.
A bend over. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, someone who's always willing to, to do whatever they ask, be a shining example of whatever job you're doing, so that when the time arises, that you're the one that call to do the job that needs to be filled, as opposed to, if you don't really show much effort for one job, what's their interest to hire you for a different job? You know what I mean? So I know that sounds like common sense, but that goes a long ways.
It really does. There's way too many people in this industry. Well, honestly, I think in any industry that just complain.
Yeah.
Or are so negative or don't want to do this.
There are many drivers that we know.
That's not my job.
Yeah, and it's like, I think either they've just gotten too comfortable with what they do or whatever, but it's just like, all that comes out of their mouth is just negativity and just frustration for what they do. And I'm like, do I need to remind you of what you do? Because
like how
what
lucky
we do
are.
is like, there's a very small percentage of people that get to do this. So
drivers definitely can have a reputation of being prima donnas, and I think there's a fair judgment behind that for a lot of people. Yeah, these nails don't clean themselves. It's always great talking with you, man. Thanks very much for dropping by. Any last words of motivation or wisdom for people trying to get into the driving world?
You shouldn't ask me that because that's going to be too many words.
Too many words?
I'm just going to lay it all out. All
right, table. One sentence.
Man. I think the best thing you can do for yourself is keep an open mind. Look for opportunity anywheres. That's already one sentence. I was about to go off.
Kevin Anderson, ladies and gentlemen. I love it, dude. It's awesome having you, and we'll definitely have to do another one. But thanks for sharing your insight.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It's always fun. So kudos, dude. Well, we will catch you on the next one. You guys, thanks again for joining us. Remember, do what drives you. Keep moving forward, of course, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.
It's too many words, isn't it?
It's a little wordy. That's all right. No, that's why you gotta get along. I don't handle quiet very well. Hi, Jeff. Welcome back.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, you guys you probably can't see him yet, but Jeff White just walked into the room. Say hi to the people, Jeff.
Is that Jeff White?
Jeff was in another video. Famous? Yeah, pretty much. My 222 subscribers as of today. Yes, thank you guys.